Hey everyone, welcome to Play Hooky with me. My name is Roz, and in today's video I'm happy to be collaborating with Hobie Yarn to share how to make this super easy scarf shawl using their gorgeous Colorina yarn. If you aren't familiar with Hobie, they're a web-based yarn supplier located in beautiful Copenhagen, Denmark. Now I'm aware that the majority of my viewers are in the US, so it may not have occurred to you to shop from Hobie, but I was so pleasantly surprised at the speed in which my yarn arrived. They have a strong reputation of getting the yarn to you quickly and efficiently. Another thing that really impressed me about their platform is it's clean and easy to use, and the pricing is automatically set in US dollars. I believe the patterns are also provided with US terms, which is really convenient. Another thing that I like about Hobie is that you have the professionalism that you would expect from a big business, yet the perks and touches like you would see from a small independent company. I mean, Hobie bingo once a week? How fun is that? And who can pass up extra candy if you join Hobie Plus? So as you can tell, I'm really pleased with my experience with Hobie yarn. And speaking of yarn, look at this gorgeous Colorina yarn. This is what we're going to be working on today, but I wanted to show you some other self-striping yarns. Here's a really pretty wool acrylic blend called Winter Glow. This is a medium 4 weight and requires a 5mm hook, and that's what I used to work up this sample. This yarn is really easy and forgiving to work with. I didn't have any problems when I was frogging back with any kind of knotting or issues with that. Now it isn't as soft as the other yarns that I'm going to be sharing with you today, but that's only relative and being compared to those. This is still really soft if you're working with it. And next we have the Carnival yarn. This is 100% acrylic, and look at the sheen on this. This is gorgeous. Now this is more in line with a typical self-striping yarn. You can see the striping here. I worked this up using the corner to corner granny square tutorial, and I'll go ahead and add a link here. If you're interested in making a shawl with this, you absolutely can. In that tutorial I do show how to decrease, but you would just skip the decreasing. I found there wasn't a lot of stretch with this yarn, so I found I needed to go up a little bit of a hook size because it was working a little tightly for me. I also added a chain in the middle of the granny clusters, just in case you decide to work this pattern with this yarn. And finally, here we are with the Colorina, and I don't have enough adjectives to give you to tell you how much I love this yarn. This was just such a joy to work with. I mean, look at the colors. For me, this just gets a big, massive chef's kiss. Mwah! This is an 80% acrylic and then 20% wool. This is so incredibly soft, just pure bliss. Now, before it sounds like I'm really trying to oversell this, let me tell you one thing to keep in mind. It isn't forgiving if you need to frog back or make a correction. When working this pattern, I really wanted to keep the colors consistent. So on one skein, I would work from the outside of the ball, and then for the second skein, I would work from the inside the ball. This is definitely not made to be a center pull yarn. So when you pull the yarn out, you are going to have some knots to deal with, and quite frankly, it's a pain in the butt. Other than that, I felt like it was a joy to work with. Just the issue of it knotting up very easily if I made a mistake. The shawl that we're going to be working on measures 23 by 50, and it required 3 skeins of yarn. Now I had plenty of the 3rd skein left over, so if you want to make a bigger shawl, you certainly can. This is including the picot border as well as the tassels. To get started, add a slip knot on your hook. I just make a little loop, pull the yarn through, and tighten. So chain 4. Create a slip stitch with the first chain. To begin row 1, chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The chain 3 is going to serve as your very first double crochet, and the chain 1 is the space in between your clusters, and that's throughout the pattern. Next, within your circle, we're going to create 3 double crochets or a granny cluster. Just working right into the center of that loop. Create 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Next, chain 3. After your chain 3, do another granny cluster. That's 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 1 more, 3. Now to finish row 1, we're going to chain 1 and then 1 more double crochet. This is going to form the side of your shawl. So you should have something that looks like this. This is the point of your shawl, and then we're going to be building to create the sides. Working row 2, chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to serve as your first double crochet and a space in between your clusters. Turn, and working into that very first space between that first chain 3 and cluster, create 3 double crochets. Chain 1. From here on out, we're going to be doing chain 1s between our clusters. We're already at the point or the corner, however you want to look at it. Whenever you reach the chain 3, you know it's time to do a cluster, chain 3, cluster. That's going to form the point of your triangle scarf. So 3 doubles. Chain 3, and then 3 double crochets within that same space. Okay, chain 1. I'm coming to the end of this round, so we're going to do 3 double crochets. Chain 1, and then 1 more double crochet to form your side. For row 3, chain 4. That's your first double crochet for the side, plus a space chain in between. And within that little space, 3 double crochets. Chain 1. Okay, as you can see, we have a little space before we reach the corner. That's where you're going to do your next cluster. 3 double crochets. Chain 1. We've reached our corner or our point. That's 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and within that same space, 3 doubles. Chain 1, that'll get us to our next little space to do our next cluster. 3 double crochets. Chain 1, and we're at the side again, so we're going to do our 3 doubles. Chain 1, and then our final double crochet for the side. And that's all there is to it. You're just going to continue doing this sequence until you've reached the size of the shawl that you want to make. I'll go ahead and write the sequence down in the description box below, and then I'll share how to do the picot border and the tassels. The picot stitch is super easy to do, and I think it gives a really nice finish to your piece. When you're finished with your scarf, you don't need to fasten off. I'm just going to continue on where I left off, and I'm going to chain 3. This is going to be our very first picot. Turn your work. We're going to create a slip stitch in that very first space. That's going to pull down your first picot. If you want your picots or the points to be bigger, then I would recommend chaining 4. We're going to create a picot within the spaces between the clusters. So what I want to do is just do single crochets in the top of each one of those double crochets. So I'm just going to go into these with a single crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Slip stitch into the space between the cluster. Now we're ready for our next picot. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and slip stitch again into the same space. A little bit fiddly. If you're finding it's hard to do, then just do a single crochet. It'll just make your picot a little bit rounder. We're back to our 3 double crochets, so we're just going to do a single crochet in the top of each one of those double crochets. 1, 2, 3. We're at our next space, so we're going to slip stitch into the space, chain 3, slip stitch again into the same space, or single crochet if it's too fiddly, and then single crochet into the top of the clusters. And we're just going to continue this all the way around. We're coming up to the point where the 3 double crochets are, and it's the same exact thing. We have the 3 double crochets before the chain 3 and after. So we're just going to do single crochets in the top of those double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Slip stitch into that center. Chain 3. Slip stitch again to anchor the picot down, and then single crochets in the top of those doubles. And then coming to the very last cluster and side, 3 single crochets into the top. 1, 2, 3. We have that little space there to do our little picot. So slip stitch, chain 3, and slip stitch to finish. At this point, if you like, you could do a single crochet at the top, but I didn't bother with that. I just left it. It had a really nice straight edge when I was all finished with it, so I just didn't bother with it. To make the tassels, it's really easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and link you to the video where I taught how to do this before. I'm using the same exact method as I used in that video. For the wrapping around for this one, I did the same amount of wraps. I think it's about 32, and I used the toilet paper roll to wrap around. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to add some more links here to other tutorials that I think would work really well with this yarn. Thank you again to Hobbii for the beautiful yarn. It was such a joy to work with.